Another challenge for the Green Hornet. His aide, Cato, and their rolling arsenal, the Black Beauty. On police records, a wanted criminal, the Green Hornet is really Britt Reed, owner publisher of the Daily Sentinel. His dual identity known only to his secretary and to the district attorney. And now, to protect the rights and lives of decent citizens, rides the Green Hornet.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie and television discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and he's out, but Sean Keenan will be back, I promise you. But in his stead, I have somebody just almost as good, Mr. Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I think I need a better chauffeur.
We all need a better chauffeur, someone to drive us around, maybe somebody with a little bit of karate skills. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the first three episodes of the Green Hornet TV series from 1966?
I think it was 66.
66 it is. Just hot on the heels of Batman, like literally, like within a couple of months.
A little bit of looking into it, the same executive producer for the two shows.
Very interesting how we'll have two shows that are kind of the same, but also very different. So we'll kind of get into some of that and everything. But yeah, Sean is out. It's okay. He's out for good reason. He's got himself a fancy job out there in the Nolans. And so he's driving out there to do that, and we can't not make the man pay for his food that's going into his kid's mouth. So
absolutely, especially it's going to be a lot of Cajun food, I guess.
Oh, that's good now. But back in the day, there was something like before the Food Network. I know that's for some people very hard to believe that there was a time before that. But we used to only have like cooking shows on like PBS and stuff, right?
Yep.
So when I was a kid growing up, I watched this PBS cooking show with my mom, and there was some Cajun guy on there. This guy put booze in everything.
That might have been Pasquale.
Was it? I don't know. But he's sitting there like everything's, we'll put a little bit of wine in that, we'll put a little wine in this, and then they would sit down for the final thing, and he would pour himself just like a goblet of wine. And just, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is going to be just absolutely hammered by the end of this thing. He just put booze in everything. He didn't care.
And back then, as far as I can remember from my childhood, there were two like Cajun chefs. One was Pasquale, and the other one was Justin Wilson. So it might have been Justin Wilson that chugged all the wine there.
I don't know, but I was just like, this guy's soused, man. Even as a kid, I'm just going, Mom, he's drinking a lot, isn't he? She's like, yeah, he is. I'm like, well, it is what it is.
That's the secret to Cajun food.
So, yeah, just get drunk and you don't know how bad it is. Boom!
I mean, how else is something going to evolve an entire cooking style around crawfish?
That's true. It's just like, hey, let's get something that takes like 88 years to try to, just suck the crap out of it. It's like, oh, I got like 0.0002 ounces of meat. Yeah, that was worth it.
Is that a bug or a fish? Don't know. I'll just eat it anyway.
Yeah, you're just eating the sea's cockroaches. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Whatever, man. So speaking of people that enjoy themselves, a lot of those people go down to the iTunes and leave us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
There, close enough. Good job. It's just like, is he going to do it? Is he going to do the bit?
I just barely caught it right at the end.
He's
there.
just like, oh, crud. Oh, that's what it is. I was supposed to do that. Your good job. All right. So, Keenan, your job is, it's safer now because he'd have been up on it better before. So this one is from, it's entitled, Can't Stop Lugging. I think that's supposed to be laughing, but I think he was laughing so hard, couldn't type it right.
Or maybe his podcast player's really heavy and he has to lug it around.
Can't stop lugging it around. He's got one of those boom boxes for the 1980s. That somehow
the best way to listen to HMP.
He's put it into iTunes for him. I don't know how
Straight
you've
out of
done
Beat
it.
Street.
Send us a picture of that heremoviepodcast@gmail.com. And it is from one entitled This is Hobbs. So I'm thinking this is one of two things. This is either The Rock's character in Fast and the Furious movies, or it's actually The Rock's little tiny dog named Hobbs. So either one of those has written us
I was thinking like
review.
Calvin and Hobbes.
No, man, it's the 21st century, old man.
Yeah, that's true, man. Nobody plays, what do they call it, Calvin Ball? Nobody plays that anymore.
No one does. And it's 5 stars, and it reads as follows. God, I love this show. I've been blasting through the backlog, and every episode has been a humdinger. I found these guys through the Preacher Podcast and followed the trails to their many other shows. These guys have great chemistry and back and forth, and the energy is always present. And they know the source material of what they are talking about. Each guy brings a different take and POV to the show, but the thing I love most about AMC HMP is the funny. Great show, and that is from This Is Hobbs. That's with a Z, by the way. This is Hobbs. Thank you for that email. And then that's what I love how, you realize that this show is funny. You realize, I'm sure, that Preacher has a lot of funny to it. There was somebody over on the Preacher Podcast gave us a review, and they're just like, hey, man, great stuff. Love the thing, but a lot of unwitty banter amongst the guests. Hey, shut up. Everyone else loves it and thinks we're funny.
Oh, man, they always know how to get under your
They
skin.
do, don't they? They're just like, everything is great except for that Adam. Big, giant
because
jerk.
For everybody who would leave a review complaining about unwitty banter, there's somebody else out there that says it's good info, but it's too dry. Believe me, I cover the spectrum between Hero Movie Podcast and Preacher Podcast all the way to like some real dry turkey over at Heroes and Villains. I get every complaint possible I get.
Why don't you go over to some NPR and listen to Diane Rehm just trying to struggle her way through reading a sentence or two out of a piece of paper. Whatever.
I also love it when I get emails that say, your show's too long, you need to shorten it, but you left out a bunch of details you should have put in. I love those kind of emails.
Those are the greatest, where it's just like, hey, you're not doing enough, and why are you doing too much?
Exactly.
It's like you can't win for trying with these people, man. So, yeah, as you heard at the top of the show here, we're reviewing the first 3 episodes of Green Hornet, the television program from 1966, starring one Van Williams, Bruce Lee, and a handful of others. Those are the only 2 names you really need to know, if we're quite honest. Oh, and Gary Owens is in there. We talked about Gary Owens before the mics were rolling, and you guys,
and
all
I think the
Gary
guy that
Owens.
played Mike Axelrod might have been on an episode of MASH or something.
Oh, there's a lot of people that have been on a lot of programs, and we'll get into that because believe me, children, while Keenan is not here, we still have a Stallone connection. Fear not, the streak will not go unbroken by and by. So, Bruce, let's get down to it. Who the heck is the Green Hornet, man?
Well, the Green Hornet was created in 1936, so you got to keep that in mind. He predates Batman, and he was created as a character for radio, but he quickly made the transition to comic books in December of 1940. Now, he was able to reach early acclaim as part of Harvey Comics, and then even in present day, sometimes people like Dynamite and DC will print Green Hornet stories. But the Green Hornet is the alter ego of Britt Reed. He's a wealthy young publisher of the Daily Sentinel newspaper. But at night, Reed dons this long green overcoat, a fedora, and a green mask, and he becomes the mysterious Green Hornet to fight crime as a vigilante. Now, Reed is accompanied by his loyal and similarly masked partner and confidant, Kato, who drives their high-tech car, the Black Beauty. It's important to note that all of this predates Batman, Robin, and the Batmobile, as I pointed out before. Now, both the police and the general public believe the Hornet to be a criminal, and Reed uses that perception to help him infiltrate the underworld, leaving behind the criminals he has captured, along with any incriminating evidence to be found by the police. Now, about that Batman comparison. The astute listener will know that Van Williams and Bruce Lee's Green Hornet and Kato appeared as anti-heroes in the 2nd season of the 1960s Batman TV series. There were 2-part episodes, A Piece of the Action and Batman's Satisfaction. And tell me if those aren't both words that Adam West used in the bedroom in the 60s.
Oh, yes, dear friend.
But as I said before, Green Hornet was on the scene before the dynamic duo. In fact, Green Hornet is very openly based on another masked crime fighter with an ethnic sidekick, the Lone Ranger, and Tonto, of course. Now, the Green Hornet and the Lone Ranger were both created by George Trindle and Fran Stryker, and the creators even went as far as to establish that Hornet and Ranger were part of the same bloodline. The Lone Ranger's nephew was Dan Reed, and in the Green Hornet radio shows, the Hornet's father was also named Dan Reed, which makes one assume that Britt Reed is the Lone Ranger's great-nephew. Now, that's some real kind of Game of Thrones Jon Snow stuff right there, you know? Now, as far as the name is concerned, co-creator George Trindle was excited about the acoustic possibilities of a B sound. Trindle directed it to be incorporated into the show. The team experimented with names, with Trindle liking the Hornet. Now, colors were considered before they landed on green. They considered blue, they considered pink, and then eventually they settled on green. And now, Adam, could you imagine maybe the modern day connotations it would have if they'd gone with the pink hornet?
Hi guys, I'm the Pink Hornet, and we're just here to we're not going to kick some butt. We're going to decorate the crap out of this room because you villains have just these dank layers, and I'm sick of them. We got to brighten them up a little bit, people. Which honestly, comparative to the Batman show,
60,
this is pretty dull and drab.
Now, how much more popular do you think this show would have been amongst an obese Philadelphia junkyard denizen if they'd gone with the Brown Hornet? Now, do you think anybody listening gets that Brown Hornet reference? Do you get the Brown Hornet reference, Adam?
I'm just nodding my head, smiling.
Oh, it's the Cosby Kids, man. Fat Albert and the gang always settled around the TV to watch the adventures of the Brown Hornet. Kato also had a bit of a complicated life. Now, he was originally referred to as the Green Hornet's Japanese valet. But after Pearl Harbor, the producer said, just kidding about that Japanese thing, guys. He's obviously Filipino. Just look at him. He's the most Filipino valet I've ever laid eyes on. Also, even though the Green Hornet's name is in the title, I think we can all agree that it's Kato that really made the cultural impact. In addition to bringing Bruce Lee's awesomeness to Western audiences, he also inspired bunches of racially insensitive ethnic stereotype sidekicks. There's Stuff the Chinatown Kid, Pie Face, Ebony White, the African-American driver for Will Eisner's most Green Hornet-like character, the Spirit. The Crimson Avenger had a Chinese chauffeur named Wing. Black Hawk had Chop Chop. The Young Allies had Whitewash Jones. Honestly, the list is alarmingly long.
That is crazy. I've never heard of half of those, and I'm just going, God, I hate being white right now.
Well, you know what, Depression era and World War II era white guys, the joke's on you, because the only endearing and quite frankly cool thing to come out of this unsettling creative time is the baddest chauffeur on the planet. I don't care if you call him Japanese, Filipino, or even Micronesian. Green Hornet ain't coming out of any of those fights in one piece, if not for Kato.
Amen to that. So I'll be honest, I never really watched any, Green Hornet stuff growing up.
Me either. I mean, honestly, if I'm going to part the kimono and lay myself bare for everyone to see.
That sounds gross. Go ahead.
The first time I really became familiar with this television show was when I watched that 1990s Bruce Lee, the Dragon movie.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It was supposed to be sort of a biography of Bruce Lee, and they had him coming to America to audition for the part of Kato, and they say, okay, you run in and punch the guy, and then, the actor playing Bruce Lee in that movie comes in and does a bunch of flips and kicks and everything, and everybody's jaws just kind of drop, and they go, okay, he's got the job.
Yeah.
So that's how I didn't even, I was kind of like every adolescent in America, I was a big Bruce Lee fan for a while, so I was surprised I hadn't seen these old episodes, and then I'm going to be honest, the movie sold a bill of goods that's not really in the show from what I can tell.
Well, and that's the thing. I never really even got around to seeing the movie because the movie, the Seth Rogen movie, right?
Oh, I'm still talking about the Bruce Lee movie.
Oh, the Bruce Lee movie. Oh, that
like
one.
This was an awesome martial arts TV show, which it wasn't.
Well, oh yeah. Well, I mean, of course, it's got to look way cooler.
The Seth Rogen movie's altogether different. I watched it once back when it came out and don't remember much about it.
I think I got, because that was still plenty of the days where the internet had super rumors and everything, and I got so disappointed because they said it was going to be, Kato was going to be played by, and the movie was going to be directed by Stephen Chow of Kung Fu Hustle and Shaolin Soccer fame. I love that guy. I like
Shaolin Soccer.
I love a lot of that guy's movies and stuff, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, he's perfect for it. And then he just had some creative differences or something, decided not to do it. And now while Michel Gondry, who I adore as a director, he got on, I was just like, it's not the same, man. It's not.
And did they try to fool us and think we wouldn't notice that it was Jay Chow instead of Stephen Chow? I don't want to get into a whole different discussion, but at the time, I was still young and naive enough to be disappointed that it wasn't Jackie Chan playing Kato.
Jackie Chan was probably about 55 when that role came about.
Still would have been fun.
Still would have been a lot of fun, though. Yeah, no doubt.
He's like, if you look at Van Williams compared to the physical fitness of Seth Rogen, I think that a 55-year-old Jackie Chan would be closer to Bruce Lee than Seth was to Van.
That's probably true. Nah, he slimmed down a lot for that movie though.
Like I said, I don't remember. I've seen it once, and my memories, I like keep seeing Pineapple Express with Jay Chow in it for some reason.
Just a lot of weed smoking.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was fairly unfamiliar with it. I mean, obviously the big one to come out of '66, the iconic thing, is going to be the Batman series and whatnot. And I think that's what gets the big run, because this one only had one season worth of stuff. So this was not kicking on the all levels,
And I think it's totally fair to compare and contrast when we're talking about this show with Batman 66 and some of the elements that maybe we can speculate were missing from this show that prevented it from catching the cultural zeitgeist the way that Adam West and Batman did.
Yeah. So the first episode, The Silent Gun, this thing, I'll give the show this much credit. It really just kind of starts.
Yeah, and the old Batman 66 just did that. We just had Batman. We didn't have Martha Wayne clutching the pearls while she's getting shot in the street or anything. Batman just exists and we accept it. And I mean, they don't give any hints as to what the setup of this is. I mean, you're just thrown into it and you figure it out as it goes along, right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much like the intro that we played at the beginning of the show. That's about the biggest backstory that you get. Hey, by the way, here's a guy. He's at a paper. He's got the thing. He goes around kicking butt. He's a vigilante, and that's it. Two people know his identity. That's it. Moving on. Awesome score.
And, for just once, I would like a masked vigilante to work at a weekly newspaper instead of a daily one. Let's show some small market vigilantes.
Give them a little bit of time to kind of go through, or maybe one of those independent rags or something.
Or how awesome would it be, though, if you just saw, like, the Weekly World News instead of the Daily Sentinel? Searching for Batboy every day.
Yeah, there's always, oh, man, I tell you what. We lost a little piece of America when that magazine went under, man. I would purchase that stuff. You know what the crazy part is like some of it, honest to goodness, would be real, and like it would just sound sensationalistic. And when you put it against something like Batboy, but like there was something about some big like it was transgendered person or something, or cross-dresser, I forget what it was because this was like 15 years ago, who like got on some electricity lines and then like got out like dropped power to an entire city. You were just like, what is this crap? Turns out that story was real.
And man, I apologize if I'm wrong here, but I feel like maybe that's kind of a Rupert Murdoch thing. Like, isn't that sort of where he got his foothold into media?
I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked.
Whether it's true or not, like Mark Twain said, don't let the truth stand in the way of a good story. So I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So I'm going to say he did it, you crazy Australian.
And one of the things I noticed, too, right off the bat, they're not going to introduce any of it, but they do a decent enough job that you kind of figure it out by the end of these first 3 episodes, most of the premise. Mm-hmm. But right off the bat, we see him with a wooden phone. They're going for some interesting aesthetic here. And I start saying, I'm going to think of this like a Western put in the modern day, because like with Gunsmoke or Marshall Dillon, they didn't tell you how he got elected sheriff or anything. You just drop down and Festus comes in and tells him somebody is causing a ruckus over at the saloon, and then the adventure unfolds. So I just kind of thought of it as like an old 50s or 60s era Western, which, this is 66, so I think that's fair.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That was what, like, this is kind of just post that big Western era and everything. So yeah, I can definitely see that in the modern era, and it's obviously going to be cheaper to produce.
Yeah, and they give us some gimmicks, I honestly think, just for gimmicks' sake. Was Dr. No 1963?
62, 63, something like that?
Yeah, I feel like they're trying to capture, sort of walk that line between what they did with Batman 66 and then what was going on with James Bond with this story. But the way that the police guy, the district attorney or whatever that always comes to visit him, sort of goes into an alleyway, walks through like these broken boards, and then they pull out 3 books and it turns into an elevator that brings him into Britt's house.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think it would be that big a deal if he just came through the front door,
No, I don't know why he goes into the places that he does, into the, secretive lair. That just looks like a nicely appointed 60s den.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to suspect I'm meeting with a wealthy newspaper publisher. I'd rather them think I'm going to an opium den 3-4 times a week.
Because, if you're the DA, you can do whatever you want.
Plus, in any major city, I think they probably filmed this in L.A. I don't know that they ever said what city it was in. But in any major city, you're going to get a few hobos settling down in behind those loose boards that he uses for his elevator.
Oh, that looks like nothing but Hobo City.
Yeah.
They just kind of, like, there's always bits of garbage and stuff lying around there. Just clean enough to where a hobo would go, like, I'd sleep there.
Yeah. So that was all kind of curious. And also pretty early, man. They introduce us to the Black Beauty, the car.
Yeah.
And, the same production company essentially did such a iconic job with that. I think it was a Plymouth Fury or something that they turned into the Batmobile. But here they just give us a big body Chrysler. They paint it all black. It's at night at a time when I don't think television quite understood lighting the way they do now. You know what I mean? So I'm not getting any thrill out of this Black Beauty. Are you?
Yeah, I am, though, because they shoot it in just like, now granted, it is bloody dark. But I mean, like, I love the green headlights and everything. And like, we really get into it in the third episode where we kind of are starting to see some of the gadgets and the brouhaha that goes along with it. That doesn't seem like cheesy Batman stuff. It seems cool. It seems like really spy level stuff.
But I'm a sucker for the cheesy.
I know you are.
and I don't know, man. If it had been green, I think I would have went with it a little better because the Green Hornet and his green beauty driving through the streets.
Like maybe like a bullet green.
Yeah, something like that. Just something to make it stick out a little bit at night. Something I can feel like I'm seeing more than just the grill of the car.
It just needed to be lit more, and it was like you said, they just don't have the lighting down, and they weren't doing like a day for night kind of crappy McCrapperson, but it looks like they legit shot at night, and while they lit it well enough, they could have lit it better, especially for like the car driving stuff. But then again, I think that's also the limited budget of the mid-'60s.
And then also, the name, the Black Beauty, once again, a throwback to a Western. That's the name of a horse from a book somewhere. So it makes sense that the same folks that put the Lone Ranger on silver would decide to put this guy on Black Beauty for a modern Western hero. But I still have to ask you, Adam, what kind of superhero rides in the back seat?
I don't know. It is the most bizarre thing. So Batmobile, Batman's always driving, Robin's going shotgun every time. We got Kato up front driving. He's just like, no worries, I'm going to go sit in the back. Now, is he doing anything important in the back? Does he have like a little lab or something set up? Heck no, he doesn't. He's
backseat driving, man. He's telling Kato what to do left and right. If I were Kato, I'd say, you think you can do a better job? Jump on up here, buddy.
I just like... it was a weird kind of thing where you're sitting back just going, well, this is uncomfortable that this guy's just driving this other cat around here. And
it really seemed kind of classist.
It did. It's just like, well, look, get the little Asian guy. He's going to drive that here. Yes, he's going to go save my butt in darn near every episode. But he's going to be the driver who gets like, I think in these 3 episodes, he may say 4 lines.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you what you think about Bruce Lee in this first episode here. I feel like maybe he got to do a little bit more in the later episodes, but I really wanted him to do some jumping and kicking, man.
Yeah, but man, when he does, it is so good because this guy can just, as anyone who knows Bruce Lee, this guy can move, and he makes everybody in here just look like a chump sucker who can't do stunts for crap.
And I also wonder if, to a degree, this was conscious on the part of the director because, like you said, Bruce Lee makes everybody else look so bad. You have to kind of rein him in, or it makes it look like Bruce Lee with a high school production around him.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised in that because, man, there's a point when they're at, as is all these cases, the box factory, as I'll call it, where he does this jump and then punch down on a dude. I was just like, oh, man, like it looks like he's on strings, but he's not. Because it's impressive.
And I'm curious, by the end of this season, I don't know, there are 20-something episodes that were all that they ever made of this show. But I wonder if by the end they got smart and had Green Hornet just say, okay, go get him, Kato, and let's not have Van Williams do any fighting. You know what I mean? Because I think that would work real well for this show as he just sicks Kato on everybody.
Well, it's funny. Sean and I were talking after the show last week, and he was saying that he had just kind of happened a couple weeks ago, stumble upon a couple episodes, and it was exactly like the movie portrayed. It's like, we got Van sitting in the chair there, and it's just like Kato's going around just kicking the crap out of everybody while he's just sitting there going, well, I guess I have to be, I wouldn't call him my young ward, but I got to be rescued by my driver.
Yeah. And, but Van Williams' slow punches are just painfully obvious after Bruce Lee jumps up and does like a double kick on 2 guys. So hopefully they did transition more to just let Bruce Lee do the fighting and let Van Williams do the very flat acting, I guess.
Well, the problem is, I think, with his fighting is really got to be that costume. That overcoat is gigantic on him.
That is true, man. That is true. Maybe they could have at least had him do like a little Steven Seagal thing where you just barely move to fight people to cover up that you're out of shape.
Yeah, just the right kind of camera moves, a little angle to just go, and then have the guy just jump when he gets hit, so it looks like it's done really, really hard.
And in the second and third episode, they do take Green Hornet away from punching, and they give him like that cane. That cane that can do whatever he needs it to do.
Yeah, but at the same time, too, they also give him, looks like a Cracker Jack box gun.
They do, man. And I also, the premises, is that plural for premises?
I don't know.
Yeah, but anyway,
Premise.
they keep it simple, which I guess works well. I think they're trying to give us a small time street level kind of vigilante, because the first story, it's just about getting a silent gun. Like, I wouldn't think that a silent gun would be all that big a deal in the grand scheme of things, particularly if there's only one. But, they go all out, man. He puts all of his resources into getting this silent gun.
Yeah, I mean, the first episode is really bizarre. It starts out at a funeral and everything, and then, one person is shot. Or two people shot, or one person?
I think it's one person shot
for the first
at the
one.
Funeral, and then somebody else gets killed after the funeral.
Yeah, and then somebody else is. This one was hard to follow because they didn't structure it out well, and I think this is, especially episode 1, they really could have taken their time to really explain stuff a little bit more, because it's almost. I don't want to say it's too smart, but they almost were too smart for their own good, I guess. To where they're going, everybody's just going to be able to catch up with this. It's just like, you should really kind of explain things out a little bit better, because the district attorney's coming in. Like, if I don't know any better, I don't know who these people really are.
And also, I feel like most of these, they're trying to build out a little bit of a story of intrigue and some double crossing and who's behind it. I think it's hard to do that in 24 minutes. I think these shows probably would have been better if they were like 2-parters, so they could basically take the equivalent of a television broadcast hour instead of half hour.
Yeah, and we'll get to, with episode 3, I was just like, well, this is going to be a cliffhanger, right?
Nope, no cliffhangers in this show, man. They had a strict no cliffhanger vibe.
No.
And then episode 2, episode 1, they're trying to get a silent gun. Episode 2 is just like an insurance scam, and the 60s equivalent of a ninja, I guess, the guy with the black mask on that's assassinating people.
Sure.
And by episode 2, I started to think maybe instead of a Western, they're trying to be a little bit Dragnet. It seems like they're going through a whole lot of procedural stuff about an insurance scam. To be honest, I could see this boring a lot of folks even in 66.
Well, yeah, it's like, to me, at this point by episode 2, they really don't have their footing as to what exactly they want to be.
And they didn't really have any kind of colorful villain in the first one. By the second episode, I guess having a guy dressed sort of like a ninja that could use a hangman's rope while he's swinging through the air to kill people, that's getting a little more colorful.
Yeah.
But I still feel like you needed like a Captain Midnight or something to fight against, you know?
Well, yeah, you had the big box factory fight and stuff like that, so that kind of added a little bit more, action to everything. You got Bruce Lee doing his awesome stuff in there, and Van just kind of doing what he does, sort of.
And it was on the second episode, I think, here, where I started realizing it seems like it takes them a painfully long time to switch out cars and convert over from Britt and Kato to the Green Hornet and still Kato.
No, Bruce, this was the most brilliant thing this show did, because that's production value that you only have to do once, and you put it in every bloody episode. Because he's got the same look every time he looks back up to where, when the light comes on, looks back at the right thing. Kato does the right thing at the right time. So it's always just that, like, hey, if worse comes to worse, we got a minute and a half in every one of these episodes where we can plug in some of this crap. So
have him jump in the car 5 times. There's your 6 minutes of time.
Yeah, so you do that, and then the driving off. Man, oh man, it takes forever. But here's the thing, Bruce. That looks awesome.
When they do the whole switcheroo.
Yes, that is so. It's a little bit silly, but for the
like
time
it, but
of the
it seems
era,
like
it's cool.
The way they showed like one claw grasping one stabilizer at a time before it flipped around seemed a little slow. Like I would have liked a more sort of like a Hot Wheels style where you push the flipper and it rapidly flips.
So
like, why don't you just keep it in the locked in position all the time? So you can flip
who
it
knows?
quick.
It's so dumb. And because here's the thing, you got dual tailpipes coming out on both of these cars. So all this thing does is basically go up. Now you see it a little bit more in the third, or at least I saw it more in the third episode, where it does it a little bit on the front too. But essentially, all this thing does is 2 two little levers come out of the bottom of the ground there, grasp onto each tailpipe, and then we use those to flip around that whole thing to where all of a sudden we go from whatever Chevy was there to the Black Beauty.
How many cars do you think they dropped and smashed before they got it right?
Oh, that's just Bruce. I hate to break this to you. That's just a model.
I'm just talking about in the fictional world of Britt Reed. Like, I wonder how many times he tried to make the flipping garage thing only to find out he just smashed another car.
Probably 1,000, because he seems like he just kind of goes into things half-cocked and just goes,
Talk about
we'll
an insurance scam.
Yeah. Now, here's it. Now, tell me, because this predates Superman, right?
Well, the radio character does.
The radio character does. So now in the radio, and I'm putting you on the spot here. I don't know if you know this, but did he work at the newspaper and the radio?
I think he did. I think he inherited it from his father in the radio.
Interesting, because a lot of this to me, like not knowing the history of the character and everything, I'm like, well, he's kind of like Batman, and he's got his own little secret lair there and everything. He's got his own car, but he's a lot like Clark Kent because he's over there working at the newspaper and everything. It seemed like an amalgamation, but it's probably an amalgamation that they kind of use for their own stuff, I guess.
And, I also, just because it came out first on the radio in a particular way doesn't mean that it wasn't heavily influenced by the time the show came around.
True.
But it's kind of a tricky one to figure out, man, because, like I said, I'm pretty sure originally he was a publisher of some sort. I want to think it was a newspaper, and if it was the Daily Sentinel, then that means they're before the Daily Planet and definitely before the Daily Bugle.
Well, I'll tell you this much. The Daily Sentinel, at least the outside establishing shot, needs work. Holy crap. It looks like it's put together with popsicle sticks.
Yeah.
It is.
It does definitely look like they didn't put a bunch of money in it.
No, this is clearly not a building. Like, you could have, all they had to do was just go to a building, film that building, and then put a sign over it that says the name of the building. That's it. But no, They built an entire just like a little set thing that looks so cheesy and so corny that, you could have put it together for yourself for a science fair project or something. It does not look good. So these like establishing shots of like, hey, here's where the paper is. You're like, oh, that's the all right, if you say so, buddy.
They could have just about gotten away without the establishing shots at that point, too.
Or just
have like
thing.
a sign on the door. There were some lower budget shows at the time where you would just go to like the studio's soundstage that was supposed to be the guy's office, and it'd say, "Welcome to the editorial office of the Daily Sentinel," and leave it at that.
I mean, dude, just look at Batman. As cheesy
exactly.
as they just redressed the same set, for the past 4 years or whatever the heck that show was on.
One thing Batman did, though, is I think it embraced its budget and it embraced its campiness. I don't think that happened with the Green Hornet. I don't feel, at least in these first 3 episodes, that it's really embracing what it is yet.
Well, here's the thing, and I'll be honest with you, that's what I like about it. I don't want that campy crap that we saw in Batman. I'm looking at this and I'm just like, man, it's a shame that this didn't catch on, because I'm going to be honest, I kind of like the to a degree, I guess. Saying it's darker really sounds like it's giving it a lot more credit than it has.
Christopher Nolan Batman in '66.
In comparison, it is. Like, I mean, when you compare that against the goofy Batman, it's at least Burton's Batman in comparison as far as tone and everything goes. But it's, to me, especially the 3rd episode is when this show really gets rolling for me.
And, something else, too, once again, the obvious comparison is Batman, but I'm seeing a lot of early James Bond here because he has his own money penny, too, at the office, right?
Yeah, he's got his own lady there who knows that he is Green Hornet, but at least in the first 3 episodes, doesn't really make much mention of it. There's kind of some, glances and looks like, I know, you know that I know that you know that you know, or some kind of crap.
And they have that whole weird, flirtatious thing that's straight out of the early James Bond movies, the Sean Connery era in particular.
Yes. Well, let me tell you, Wendy Wagner is the one who plays his secretary there. Not the best actress in the world, but she is good looking, so I don't much care.
That's the thing, man. It's the same thing with Moneypenny. We're supposed to believe that, Britt Reed, I guess, we don't know exactly that he's lecherous. In fact, he might actually be gentlemanly, but we're supposed to believe that she's every day offering herself up to him and he's not interested,
What a dummy. Because I'm looking at it like, look, man, she can't act, but, she makes up for it in other spots, so
and she
whatever you want there.
It definitely starts to show up a little bit of jealousy when that that lawyer shows up, right? In the last story, the third episode, the one with the leopard in it.
Yes, the leopard. The leopard's awesome.
And that's when we are finally getting more of a colorful villain. This is the lady who controls big cats. I could see her coming back if this show went on a few more seasons and having a bigger and bigger role, So they could call her the crazy cat lady or something.
Well, see, this is the third episode. That's where it really gets rolling for me because we do have kind of a definable villain and everything. It looks like they finally got some more production value. They go to this rich woman's house where they're making diamonds or whatever nonsense that's going on. But it looks cool. You got all the henchmen sitting around the table, and it looks like they all look like Dick Tracy villains.
And when the leopard showed up, man, I was so happy because this had been pretty mundane in the first two episodes. Like, not much that community theater couldn't have replicated. But then finally a leopard shows up, and I know I'm not going to get leopard here at the local outdoor theater, so I was finally getting drawn in by something.
You just get a little 9-year-old girl dressed up as a leopard to kind of walk through and just like, we buy it, it's good.
And I also love it when they decided to blame it on some leopard that escaped from the zoo, and then the zookeeper comes in and talks about how it's like a toothless leopard whose claws are all worn down to nubs and all this. I kind of thought that was fun, man.
I'll be darned that I'm going to sit here and listen to you badmouth my leopard.
Just to think, man, that guy probably doesn't get a lot of dates when he's that into his leopard.
Just like he's geriatric. I like how it's like his teeth are falling out and he can barely move. And I'm just like, what kind of what decrepit zoo are these kids going to where they just see these geriatric animals that are just barely going along with hip replacements? It's sad.
And I love it when they, get this poor man's Zsa Zsa Gabor to come in as an attorney. I think she's really fun. I like the way she carries herself and the way that she introduces a lot of brevity or levity, rather, to the show.
She's great. She's got an awesome looking like her costume and hair. Everything all looks really good on her. And it, like I said, it seems like this one they decided to really step up the game. I mean, the leopard comes in, knocks a dude out of the window and everything. Pretty neat POV shot and everything. So it starts to get cool. I think they really started to get in their own on episode 3.
And I just love that dynamic between her and Britt, where she comes in, oh, I'm going to sue you for $1 million. Oh, darling, take me to lunch. This whole weird thing that I don't know a whole lot of lawyers personally, but I like to feel like that is exactly how they are. You know what I mean? So detached from the emotional implications of their professional actions that they are just clueless like that.
I'm the scum of the earth. You want to get dinner?
Oh, I know I'm going to have you penniless and living on Skid Row, but, before we foreclose on your house, buy me something.
Would you like to have dinner at the Whataburger? It's going to be great.
No. Oh, man, Whataburger's a little too rich for my blood. We're just going to have to do those microwave ones at the gas station.
Well, the newspaper business ain't what it used to be.
And speaking of what the newspaper business used to be, I want to hear what you think about the fact that the editor can pull back a curtain on his window and he's actually got the broadcast news studio anchor sitting in a room as it looks like it's in an anchorman's aquarium just reporting the news for him.
It is. It looks like. So the start out close is like, oh, we're like watching a news report and everything. You see the anchor, he's sitting there reading about all the crap that's going down. And then we pull out, and first of all, they're doing way too much of a crazy, camera move there with for that time and era. I'm just like, that did not happen then. So I don't know why you're doing that weird camera move to where the studio camera moves on the anchor like that. They wouldn't do that back then. They do that kind of stuff now, but not back then. And then we kind of keep pulling out and out and out. And we're in, unbeknownst to us, because we hadn't seen anything about this at this point by episode 3 here, and then we're all that's separating the actual news studio from Britt's office is going to be just a pane of glass.
And I like to picture it that in this city, the way that the news works is they just get the morning paper and read it, and that's your afternoon newscast. I mean, they're just sitting there reading you the paper.
I was confused. I'm just like, you kept saying newspaper, and all of a sudden you got a TV studio in there too. I mean, like, how rich is this guy?
Maybe it was just a YouTube channel back in the early days of YouTube.
But it did. It looked like they were just performing the news for him because I'm sitting there going, I'm like, where's the control room?
Wouldn't that be a great power to have? Whenever you wanted to know what was going on, you just pull back a curtain and you have your own personal newscaster.
Moneypenny, pull that curtain for me. I got to see what the weather is. Hey, what's the weather? All right, shut
That's
it.
like how the king would do it or something.
Just shut it. I'm tired of looking at his dumb face. I hate him.
Oh, man. And I also got to tell you, I still don't think I quite understand the tech on this show. Like, they're giving him some gadgets, but I don't quite know what that cane does. Like, he points it at something once and it makes the thing explode. Then when he's locked in a refrigerator, it makes the door vibrate until he can burst out of it. And then at other times, it's almost like a stun gun. I don't quite understand his cane.
I'm scratching my head trying to figure this out because, like, when the other guy, which, by the way, him getting stuck in that refrigerator, it's just like, you sap. I just wanted to reach through the screen and slap his dumb head. I'm just like, you are so dumb. It's just like, hold on, you can't. First of all, he goes, like, he brings him in. He's just like, here's the final stage of where we put all the diamonds. Oh, don't pick them up with your hands. It'll scorch your skin. I'm like, he's wearing gloves. And
at least synthetic diamonds seemed a little more impressive to me than the insurance scam and the quiet gun.
That's true. So he's just like, oh, let me pick this up for you. So he picks it up and the thing is, examine it. Why don't you look at it? Why don't you look at it? He basically goes, why don't you not look at me while I grab something to hit you with?
Bonk you on the head,
He's
Mr.
practically
Superhero.
saying that out loud, and he just goes, well, might as well look at it. He keeps telling me to look at it, so by George, I'm going to look at it hit me on the head with a big giant,
And in all reality, he should send his driver in first to make sure it's safe.
Yeah, he just goes, Kato, stick in the car. You're going to be fine. And I don't know what Kato would be. Like, if I was Kato, I'd be peeved at that point. I'm just like, seriously? I'm driving you all the way out here. I don't have any, like, beef jerky or anything to keep myself satisfied while you're sitting in there doing God only knows what.
He's just playing Tetris on his phone.
Oh, man. I was just like, but I did love how while he was going into the house there, the guy sitting there having his dinner and everything, I did love his, like, kind of like, he almost like feels somebody in like his presence there and like looks around. I love that. That was kind of cool.
And I also, I like the way that they established this pretty early on. But whenever the Green Hornet figures out which like crime boss is behind things and he goes to confront them, he always tries to extort them for half the profits on the crime. Like he doesn't want to stop them from doing what they're doing. In fact, he wants them to think that he's vested in their success so that he can follow their trail and stop everything. But that's kind of a nice touch that, I'll be honest, I can't think of any other properties, at least not easily, that's taken that kind of approach. I like it.
Yeah, because like the cops and everybody are still against him because he's a vigilante, but at the same time, he's not doing a lot of stuff to like, he's not like Spider-Man where he's just going to like go and save somebody and that's that, and leave the guys on a web there with a sign that says for police or something. He's going to go in and just like really, just extort these people and just go like, all right, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to gain their trust. Then they're going to let me into their trust. And then boom, going to get them on top and then they're done.
How weird if they'd tried to infuse a little bit of a J. Jonah Jameson Spider-Man relationship where Britt Reed was always talking about how awful the Green Hornet was and telling people to run inflammatory headlines. That would have been kind of funny and kind of nice.
That would have been where he just really is like he's his own, J. Jonah. That's the best way to do it. He's just going in defaming himself in his own paper and everything. But
we better bring this villain to justice.
I like how he goes and like kind of like it looks like he's reading the paper for the first time when they get it to him. It's like, you're the head of this. You didn't proofread none of it. You just go, well, let me see what this paper is. Boy, that's a big headline there, isn't it? What is it?
I know the paper's already printed and out, and he gets sued for libel because he wasn't able to proofread for the whole alleged thing until the next day when it was too late. So
I want you to run
funny.
all the copies, then I'm going to read the first one, and if I don't like it, then you're going to redo them all. So what I want you to do is do it right the first time. Boy, that's a power move.
And the whole idea of being editor-in-chief is the assumption that there are other editors there. You know what I mean? So even if you didn't read it before it went out, there's somebody between you and the reporter that probably had to okay that, right?
Yeah, and that's where Jimmy, is going to get strung up by his, tenders if he don't watch himself.
Oh, man. But Mike Axelrod, that's the name of this reporter. Mm-hmm. This reporter that's a recurring character. He shows up throughout the series.
You can just say Irish gentleman.
Yeah, there were some parts, though, man. He had a couple of facial expressions when he was upset or something was going on, and I got just a touch of his Shemp Howard off of him, and I liked him from that point on.
He wasn't bad, man. Here's the thing. I don't think any of the acting in this is actually bad. I think it's all pretty serviceable and everything. I think people are going to probably think Van is a little bit of a, he's not super dynamic. But I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, I like him more as a Bruce Wayne than I do Adam West, but that's just me.
That's the thing, man. The big argument with Batman is always one guy's a good Bruce Wayne, another guy's a good Batman. I feel like Van does a pretty good job as Brit. But part of it, I guess, is that molded plastic mask that they put on him made it a little tough for him to show any facial expression. And then on top of that, his voice just kind of matches it. I mean, it really looks like fresh line readings every time he says something as the Hornet.
Well, and here's the thing, like, again, as an intrepid reporter, how when your boss stands in front of you with, it's not quite, but close enough to a domino mask on, using his exact same voice, you don't know that it's him.
And I think in the old 1940s serials and in the original comic books, he had almost like a green hood on his face with just eye holes cut out of it, so it would explain it a little better. But I can see where for television you may want to show a little bit more of the face. Imagine trying to make it through this show if he has a pillowcase on his head the whole time.
Yeah, I've seen kind of variations and stuff. I've seen one where it's like just eyes open up and then it's not Lone Ranger, but just like old cowboys where they kind of tie the bandana around the lower half. Yeah. I've seen that kind of stuff.
Sort of almost like the Shadow is what I think it looks like.
Yeah, very Shadow-esque in a way for sure. So I'm like, I've seen variations, but yeah, the mask, which also essentially is a large pair of sunglasses if you look at it properly, because it's not really wrapping around his head, but it does look like giant molded sunglasses with no lenses in them and everything.
Yeah, it does look like it's just resting upon his ears. I got a shredder mask like that I wear sometimes.
Of course you do. But Kato's looks better.
Yeah, it does,
it's
man.
Not it's not as ornate, but it looks better.
And maybe the costume department probably had a wider option of black masks to choose from than Green Hornet emblemed masks. You know what I mean?
Bruce is like, look, I'm not going to look like a jackass on this show. Give me this one. It's good.
Yeah. But there's probably all kinds. They just go over to the Zorro set and get a mask for him,
Might as well have. I mean, and I'll be honest, I don't know how faithful it is to the books or nothing, but the little bit in the middle really kind of, I don't know, drove me a little batty for some reason. I don't know why.
Like the little piece on the nose?
No, the forehead, the little the hornet in the middle of his forehead there, and I'm just like, I don't know, does that need to be there?
And they put like a hornet. I guess it was a hornet emblem on it, but it's so small that it doesn't show up on camera. And definitely doesn't show up on a computer screen when you're watching it 50 years later.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up that well. I'm like, just make the whole mask green. And just, all he's got to do is just walk around and go, I'm the Green Hornet, by the way. Green Hornet here.
Yeah.
Just says, Green Hornet. I don't know. But, I mean, I liked it overall. I mean, I didn't... I'll be honest, by episode 3, I kind of wanted to watch more of it.
Well, the nice thing is, man, that they're all available on YouTube, right?
Yeah, so everything's available on YouTube. So go out there if you want to check them out and stuff. And
if you want to learn how to make fake diamonds, all you have to do is heat some coal up to the same temperature as the Earth's core, and then freeze it to 50 below zero. I think he said.
Yeah, which by the way, he just opens up that oven and now, granted, he gives a nice little. He gives for what was surely nothing coming out of there. He gave a little a good ooh, that's hot kind of vibe look on his face. I'll give that actor complete credit. Now, granted, it's not as hot as the surface of the sun or whatever the crap it's supposed to be, but he gave a little ooh, there's some heat coming off, and I'll give him credit on that.
And I'm not going to pretend to know more than I really know, because I don't know how hot the Earth's core is, but I would imagine it'd be hot enough to melt the little toaster oven rack that he has in there.
Yeah, it's just pretty much oh, don't touch it. It's so dumb.
It's volcano hot.
I don't know. So we come to an impasse in our show here, Bruce.
Yes.
Because Sean is not here. And what are we to do when Sean is not here?
We have to sally forth, struggle on.
Yes. So fear not, dear children, for I have a prepared statement.
Oh, really now?
Yes. Now, with Sean traveling this week, it was up to Bruce or I to come up with a Stallone connection. And since in real life we hate each other with the fiery passions of 1,000 suns, we didn't talk about who was going to do the Stallone connection, so I took upon myself to do it. And that's where you lose, HMPers. How could a man with barely a high school education come up with a well-written, funny anecdote connecting the Green Hornet TV series to the Salami King himself, Sylvester Stallone? Well, he can't. But not being able to do things never really stopped me before. Just ask my ex-wife. Now, Walter Brooke plays District Attorney Frank Scanlon on the Green Hornet. Now, if you've never seen the Green Hornet TV series, let me give you an idea of what Frank Scanlon looks like. He looks like no district attorney ever seen. Frank Scanlon looks like a greasy scumbag accountant that the district attorney in any other television show would bust for large shipments of cocaine being smuggled in from South America, thus securing him a key to the city, which would ultimately lead to his suicide when he learns that having the key to the city doesn't grant you the right to have free Dunkin' Donuts anytime, day or night. It's symbolic, you dumbo! Now, where was I? Oh, yes. As best I can tell via these 3 episodes, Frank Scanlon's job was to mosey on into the Green Hornet's version of the Batcave that I'll call the Hornet's Nest and give Britt Reed the 411 on whatever the plot for that week was. Now, I don't know whose cousin Walter Brooke was, but this guy owes him a debt that he was surely likely never to repay. Because, you see, Britt Reed owns a newspaper and by all accounts knows everything about everything at all times. So what does he need the DA coming down to tell him what's what? Nothing, says I. Now, he's there, really, for us. The dum-dums watching this show who are too blasted stupid that we have to have what's going on told to us a second time. He's the Teletubbies of 1960s TV. Just keep repeating the same crap over and over, and the pea-brain morons out there in TV land are bound to get it eventually. Thanks for keeping us up to date, Walt. We're only slightly less dumb thanks to you. Now, Walter Brooke worked his hinder off in his long career in Hollywood, from the Green Hornet to Perry Mason, Simon and Simon, the A-Team, Trapper John, Cagney and Lacey, Quincy, MASH, Dallas, and the Rockford Files. The list goes on and on and on. 213 credits long, to be precise. And while Walter Brooke may no longer be with us, I think it's safe to say that his crowning achievement was when he finally got to guest star on frequent Stallone connection Kojak, where Stallone once played Detective Rick Daley. In 1975, Walter Brooke would guest star on Kojak as Judge Laverly, a role in which I'm sure he did nothing but sit on his butt in his judge's chair all day long, eating as much craft services as humanly possible. Living the dream, Walter Brooke. Living the dream. So there you have it, HM Peers. This week's Stallone connection. Now, Cato, let's rate this bad boy so I can go back to abusing my Players Club member privileges.
Oh, man. You know, talking to you about the show, you seem to have a bit more affection for it than I did. You almost made me maybe second guess what I would rate the show. And what I would say is talking to you about the show is definitely a Tim Drake, man. But the show itself, it didn't have any, like, just flat-out incompetence. You know, I mean, it wasn't the best, but it didn't have flat-out incompetence. The stories weren't incomprehensible. But it also lacked some of the fun you can get from really bad stuff. Like you said, there was no serious, over-the-top, hammy acting that I like so well. No cheesy car that I like so well. So in the end, it all kind of seems olive drab, like the color that Green Hornet uses. So I'm going to give it a Stephanie Brown personally.
Okay. I'm going Damian Wayne on this. Now, beforehand, within the first 2 episodes, I probably would have gone Stephanie Brown as well. So at least for the first 3 episodes, I'm going Damian Wayne. I like it. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. First 2 episodes, I really would have been down. But what they kind of, where it seems like they're going to go for the future episodes in this series, it seems like they're about to have a lot more fun. They're starting to kind of get where the characters are going. They're getting the vehicle. They have more gadgets and stuff. They're doing neat spy things and fighting and stuff. I'm starting to dig it.
And I was a little excited about it maybe being a little like Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., or a little bit like the Reb Brown Captain America. I thought it would be a little more ludicrous than it was. So that's maybe deflated me some.
I think so. Me, I just kind of like, once I really kind of got the vibe, and it gave me more of a kind of like, what if we did Batman 66 in a more serious tone, kind of gave it. And I think that's probably why it only went for, well, did Bruce Lee die before this thing was done? I don't know.
No, I think he survived through the making of this.
So fair enough.
But I want to nominate for the schedule in the future that those 2 episodes that was the crossover for Green Hornet and Batman 66, we ought to review that sometime.
Heck yeah, I'm down for that. I want to see these worlds collide. But yeah, man, I'll be honest with you. By the 3rd episode, I was like, I don't think I would mind watching more of this stuff, man. If it kind of keeps this level and, we get to see a little bit more Bruce Lee action because, when he finally starts to step stuff up a little, and I'm not blaming him on this, mind you, but when his character, gets involved a little bit more, I think I'll start to like it a bit. But, yeah, overall, I got to say, for something that started off very kind of slow, very ho-hum and everything, it really got to a level that I kind of liked at the end, and I'm going to continue to watch it. And hey, man, like I said, all 26 episodes are free there on YouTube, so if you got the time and inclination, give it a shot, man.
I don't know if I'll dive back into it anytime soon, but next time I have a big trip or something, maybe that's what
if
I'll
I'm
do.
super bored or something, and I just go, gosh, I want to do something, I'll pop up one of those episodes just to, throw away 23 minutes of my life. You can do a lot worse.
And it's easy to prevent yourself from binge watching, so it's safe in that regard.
That's true. I mean, because honest to goodness, like if we didn't immediately say, hey, we have to do 3 episodes, I probably would have stopped after 2 and be like, all right, I kind of get it. Whatever. It's whatever. But after the 3rd one, I'm just like, oh, well, okay, this is starting to pick up. I think they're kind of really getting their footing here and seeing what they're doing. So yeah, it's a Damian Wayne for me. Bruce, what are we doing next week, man?
I think we're going to do Ghost Rider.
All right, so Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance was one of our early reviews on this thing. Has led to quite a many of a callback joke here on HMP.
Yeah, and I will say, unless my memory is lying to me, which it's done before on this show, but I remember liking Ghost Rider a whole lot better than Spirit of Vengeance. So maybe that'll open up some discussion.
I remember them being about the same. Because man, I didn't see 2 in the theater, but I did see 1 in the theater, and so we'll talk about that experience and all that other kind of stuff. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet this week, sir?
Well, people can follow me on Twitter at Hero Movie Sean, and they can check out my YouTube channel, Angry Gay Spider-Man, and please support Outcast on Cinemax.
Indeed. And, of course, my other show, The Film Fine, we took a week off, but we're doing double episodes this week, so fear not. We got so much crap to talk about, it's ridiculous. And, of course, our other show, Preacher Podcast at preacherpodcast.com, and, of course, iTunes, Stitcher, all those kind of good places. And we only got a couple more episodes this season, but I would say this, guys. Why don't you go down and listen to the interview that I did with composer Dave Porter, the guy who did that. And he
you did a good job on that, by the way. I haven't
thanks.
spoken to you about it, but I thought that was solid, man.
Yeah,
you did a great job.
It was a great time. I mean, the guy's he's really open about stuff, and we had a fun time. And he's working on some other things and whatnot. So we may talk to him in the future for other projects that I'm doing. So who's to say? Who's to say? But why don't you check out the Preacher Podcast? We'd really appreciate that. The Film Fine. And by the way, guys. Bruce, you got a special show out right now, don't you?
The Rorschach episode?
Something that's close to your heart, man. I started listening.
Rorschach on Heroes and Villains, if people want to go check that out.
Let me tell you something, kids. If you want to hear a grown adult man say just admit some things that most grown men might not admit to you, go listen to that episode. The man's bearing his soul to you and giving you every piece of him whole cloth. Go ahead and do that. It'll make your day. I promise you.
It was an episode 3 years in the making.
Indeed. So that's it, everybody. Join us back here next week when we talk the original Nick Cage Ghost Rider. God help us all. For Bruce Leslie, the absent Sean Keenan, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.